On the 4th of October, 2017, Thomas fans were left with a bad taste in their mouths. On this day, the season 21 episode A Shed for Edward aired on TV in the UK. Prior to this, there had been rumors about Mattel kicking Edward and Henry off the main cast in favor of two brand new female characters. And in this episode, Edward left Tidmouth Sheds. At this point, it became apparent that what everyone was saying was true. Edward was no longer part of the main cast. He was gone. In A Shed for Edward, an accident with Tidmouth Sheds causes the need for two engines, Thomas and Edward, to move sheds. Thomas is, from what we know, moved to Knapford, and Edward is moved to Wellsworth with Philip? Why Philip? We'll never know, considering he works at Knapford. A shed for Thomas, anyone? When the sheds are rebuilt, Edward offers to spend one more night with Philip, when Philip says,
"You can stay as long as you like, forever even."
And Edward follows through on this, with consideration of the shed being near his branch line. This is where season 21 ends, at least for the production order. From what we knew, Edward could practically never speak again. With season 22 though, this was proven false. Out of the 26 episodes, Edward appeared in 6 of them, with 4 proper speaking roles. He even has a pretty big role in one of them. This was actually a decent season for Edward. And then season 23 happened. This right here is the only proper shot we get of Edward in this season. Great. And season 24 wasn't much better, with only 1 proper speaking role. It's like Mattel was saying, here's Edward in season 22. See? He's not dead. JK, he is. This is so disappointing, because I think Edward leaving the shed could have worked if done right. Let me explain. The original idea for Edward leaving was great, at least in my opinion. Here's what was supposed to happen. Season 21 was going to have the normal 26 episodes originally. At some point in the season, a shed for Edward would have happened, and Edward would have left the shed. Now, in the show we know, Edward ended up being replaced by Nia, while Henry would be replaced by Rebecca after leaving the shed himself. In the original concept, Nia wasn't ever a character, and Henry was never meant to leave the shed. You can tell by the way the writers wrote him out.
And the Fat Controller says I can stay in the sheds in Vickerstown from now on.
Edward was meant to be the only one leaving the shed. He would then be replaced by Rebecca, who was meant to be introduced soon after. Presumably, Edward would have had the same treatment he got in season 22, appearing in a few episodes per season. I think writing Edward out of the main cast was a good idea. When Brenner's team took over, it was pretty clear that they didn't know what to do with him. Past writing teams have tried making Edward main in episodes, only for the episodes to not be very good. For example, the hit team wrote Saving Edward, Edward Strikes Out, and Steady Eddie. Edward mainly works when he isn't the main character, but a main character. Look at Old Reliable Edward. Edward is a main character, but he co-stars alongside Thomas and Gordon. Since you can't really make Edward solo in an episode without him being written wrong, he isn't exactly good for a role in the main cast. He works as a side character, which is even more apparent in several episodes. It should also be noted that Edward often had the main cast mentality when he wasn't important to a story. Yet another reason why he doesn't work as part of the main cast. The team had the right idea of replacing Edward with a younger, more naive character like Rebecca. So where did it go wrong? Where they went wrong was Big World Big Adventures. To make way for the movie, Mattel cut season 21 short, leaving us with A Shed for Edward as the final episode, ending on a cliffhanger. This was a terrible idea. Now, Edward is replaced with Nia, and the team had to write out Henry to make way for Rebecca. It didn't help that after season 22, the two of them were used as fan service more so than characters. And since Rebecca was no longer the token season 21 newbie, her episodes were spread throughout the era, meaning we don't exactly get her arc in one season, or even in a good order. There was so much potential here, but that's another video for another day. To summarize everything, the team had a great idea originally for Edward, but Mattel stepped in and made everything worse. Thanks, Mattel. Still, I think Edward leaving was a good thing. He didn't need to be a main character, and making way for a new character would have been a clever way to spice up the show, which was admittedly becoming very status quo by that point. I just really wish Mattel let the original plan play out. Whether this would have led to a different season 22 or the end of the show entirely, it would have ended in a better place than it did officially.
I'm sure we'll see each other all the time.